Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Chris McElwain and also Sean Conley. We're here to talk about Hibs 1, Celtic 2. They pulled a goal back, Sean, but I think I'm going to be looking more at the positives around this display over the 95 minutes or so. I'm not going to say it was all about, a Hibs onslaught in the second half, because it wasn't all about that. Celtic came through a game that if you'd offered me 2-1 at Easter Road before the match, I'd have bitten your hand off. Job done.
Yeah, there was a lot more nuance to it than that. I don't know what words you might use to describe it. Gritty, well managed. I'm not sure. Obviously, Hibs. We talked about half time. Hibs came out pretty early, getting a lot of balls into the box without really threatening, and we kind of got a bit of a grip on the possession. Score two, have another one chopped off, hit the post, and we're looking well in control in the last 30 minutes of that first half. 2-0 up at half time. We're expecting kind of more of the same in the second half, and it doesn't really eventuate that way. Hibs come out firing and up for it, and we look a bit less assured. We start losing the possession a little bit more. And then Hibs get a controversial penalty, and at that point we just basically switch into game management mode, and it looked very much from that point that we were not showing too much endeavour. I don't think we had a shot on goal after that, to be honest. And we just managed the game out. We defended well, and that it's not pretty, but our record at Easter Road has been, I think, highlighted on the match day in the coverage and whatever. Whoever's commentating, well, I get BN down here, but I think he said 5 wins out of 18 or something like that. Easter Road in the league. So apparently we've got a pretty appalling record at Easter Road. So 3 points is 3 points, and it's a hard place to get 3 points, and we'll take it.
No, without a doubt. And you do have to look at the entirety of that performance. We'll be pulling as many positives from it as possible. Someone's already mentioned this positive here. There was a couple in the second half, Chris, with the big man getting booed because he obviously, I think, his behaviour surrounding the penalty kick, which is to be expected. And he pulled off 2 really important saves. I'm saying 2, there was a few more, but near the end of that game, you just think the big man needs to do that. He needs to step up. But not only that, in the second half, you look at Trusty and Scales. Now, we keep going back to that game in Bergamo where we're playing Atalanta and we come away with a 0-0 draw last season, where you're under the cosh, you've got to defend, and they have probably the best game as a partnership they've ever had. I'm not comparing Hibs to Atalanta, of course. What I am saying is that when you're under the cosh, these guys know how to defend. I thought they were brilliant.
Yeah, I thought they showed good leadership, good awareness. There was a moment in particular that stood out for me with Trusty, and Hibs were on the break, and I think they probably the slight being a Scales, but it was very clever movement from Trusty. Trusty actually crossed over and got right side of him, if I remember, and was there to sweep up the ball. So I thought there was a few moments like that where I thought both Trusty and Scales showed their mettle. Felt very, very sorry for Trusty. I'm sure Sean will have the clearer opinion on it, but I felt very sorry for Trusty, for Scales rather, at the penalty. I've looked at the IFAB rule. It's, apparently it's anything above the armpit, so I didn't see it as a penalty. I'm not sure what more he could have done. But I thought a reaction to that, to what I thought was an unjust penalty, I thought we reacted relatively well. I don't think the heads went down. I don't think we capitulated the way we have done, in certain prior times. I thought there were still some players who looked pretty good out there. Yang, I've got to give a mention to, was still trying to make things happen on that left-hand side. Cut inside, had a good opportunity. I thought he was one of these guys that looked like he could make something happen. I thought Engels, as you said, I thought he stepped up, showed a bit of needle throughout that second half, kind of getting in players' faces. I like that. I like to see a bit of aggression. Maybe he needs to work on his decision making at times, particularly when giving away maybe soft fouls. But I thought, overall, I thought he played really well. But look, see, at the end of the day, and it was a great point made earlier. I think it was Barry O'Sullivan made a point. That's a good point again from Patrick as well. If that 3 points leads us to go on top of the league and staying there for the rest of the season, nobody's going to remember that second half, the challenges we face in that second half. It's all about the result. It's all about getting the 3 points. And look, we're now in a far healthier position on the table than we were prior to the match. So, job done.
Without a doubt. Absolutely. You take the 3 points to get out of Dodge. Hearts are sitting top of the league, having played a game more. There's only 2 points in it. Pressure, big pressure. I think the quote was back in the day when Engels was taking a penalty kick against Hearts. I want to talk a wee bit about Yang, Engels, but before we do all that, Sean, get the referee's hat back on, my man, because I want to hear your thoughts about the penalty kick. Because at that stage of the penalty, I'm looking at the game thinking, right, Hibs started the first half really well, first 20 minutes. They had us pinned back. And I'm looking at the second half in the same way. They started off really well, the difference being they get a goal. Should it have been a penalty though, Sean?
First of all, just the story here should be the most obvious glaring error from the first half, and I know we talked about that at half time, so I'm not going to go over it again. But Hibs should have had that red card for the kick to the face in the first half. But yeah, in regards to the penalty, this one is so simple it's not simple. What happens is the ball comes in, and then you have to take a lot of factors into account, like position of arm, how far it's travelled. The ball has travelled a long distance. His arm is out with his body. If that has come that distance and hit his hand in the position that it's in, then it's a penalty. And it would be a correct decision in such a regard. Now, when you see several replays, it is clear that the ball does make contact with his hand. What is not clear is does it first come off his shoulder and then his hand? Or does it hit his hand and then go off his shoulder? Because it's clear from the replay as well that it's hit his shoulder. So shoulder is not a penalty, hand is a penalty. It hits both. So here's where the order of operations is important. If it comes off his shoulder onto his hand, it's not a penalty. If it comes off his hand onto his shoulder, it is a penalty. Now, my complaint here is, who can see which order that has happened in? Because I cannot, having seen it like 100 times, every replay they showed, I'm like, okay, I don't know which happened first here. But Grant Irvine on VAR seemed pretty certain that which it was the hand first. And the replay that Nick Walsh got shown on the monitor about 100 times, I'm exaggerating, shown about 5 times in a row, was the really zoomed out, grainy, low resolution footage that looked like, and the footage that Nick Walsh was shown looked like Liam Scales was punching the ball, but like every other angle is like, I just can't tell. Like, I just cannot tell if that's his shoulder first or his hand first. So that is not a clear and obvious error. Maybe it was a penalty. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. VAR have absolutely stitched up Nick Walsh there, though. That is all I'm saying.
Well, it goes back to the point I always make. No, I don't rate our officials, but I also get so frustrated when they can't give you a defining image, a defining item of evidence that says this is why. And that's down to the fact that it's frame rate, it's resolution, it's all these kind of things that you've mentioned, Sean. If they show you, right, here's the frame of it hitting his hand, here's the next frame of it hitting his shoulder, therefore it's a penalty, you'll put your hands up and say, right, I take it, absolutely take it. But we don't have that system. We don't have a good enough system where it was going to give you that level of proof. I'm going to run through some of these comments. We won't forget to talk about the first half because that was the high point of the game. We were absolutely coasting it, I think. Goal chopped off, etc., as Sean says. Should have been a red card for Hibs, and we go in at the break 2-0 up. That 2-0 scoreline got us through, got us the 3 points, and we're now 2 points behind Hearts. David Boyle says, PJD, it's time to talk about Ralston. He has been so poor. Then team are nervous around him. Yeah, it is. And I remember going back to the pre-match, Chris, people were saying Donovan should never be starting. You know, Ralston should be in there. I think Martin O'Neill was right to start Donovan. I think he's on a booking and he's had a sore one just before half-time. So he gets hooked at half-time. Ralston's got the experience. He's potentially going to a World Cup. The chances are he will go to a World Cup in the summer and all this kind of stuff. But he's not been great. He's not been great since St Mirren. Been really poor, actually. And I mean, it was almost as if he was spooked out there today.
It looked a bit shaky. Yeah, I would agree. I don't think there was I don't think there's a lot you can say to defend the performance. Look, I mean, he's coming into a game. It was for me, it was quite a fast-paced game from start to finish. Hibs definitely had their tails up after the penalty decision as well. So he's coming in under quite challenging circumstances, but that's where you need to step up and be counted. And I felt as though Hibs recognised that there was maybe a slight weakness there, and they targeted that side, and you saw a lot going down that side. But as we said, on the counterpoint, that's where you're looking for guys like Trusty and Scales to step up, and I think they did. And I think we managed the nervousness of Ralston, if you want to call it that, quite well. And Tony, actually, as the game wore on, I think he grew into it a little bit and became a bit more assured, started playing it a bit simpler. But yeah, look, there's work that needs to be done in this squad, not just at that right back position. We're obviously missing AJ, who is the de facto number one. We've got a very promising youngster in Colby Donovan. I think he did his reputation no harm today whatsoever with his first half performance. And look, Tony has proven that he can be a reliable hand under the right circumstances. But he's maybe taken a bit of a confidence knock after the St Mirren game. He's maybe needs to get his head, back in the game. Maybe having a wee bit of a break, and if the manager utilises Donovan going forward in the interim, then allow him to get his focus back. But ultimately, it didn't cost us today. We won the game, come away with 3 points, and that's all that matters for me.
Yeah, there is that, of course, and we have a very interesting take on us from AJ SC Tech, who's a regular commenter on the streams. Good win today, ugly but still sexy. No analysis.
I get that a lot, to be honest. A lot of people say that about me.
Well, I'm not sure who he's talking about. No analysis, just pure enjoyment of winning a tricky away game with 2 home SPFL games to come. I do get a sense of that. I always think that, this football utopia where you're looking at performance over the actual outcome is a risky view. And when you look through the introductory interviews, press conferences of Celtic managers, those who talk to us about style and all that kind of stuff, often it doesn't work out for them. I remember Tony Mowbray talking about football utopia. That's who I was quoting there. I remember John Barnes coming in with all these highfalutin ideas of how the game should be played.
4-2-2-2, remember that?
Yeah, Ronnie Dyler. Listen, Ronnie won a couple of leagues and he won a Scottish Cup as well. But at the same time, no, he won a League Cup. Sorry, we were cheated out of the Scottish Cup. But at the same time, it's about winning. It's about winning first and foremost, Sean. So you come away from Easter Road with the 3 points. You look at that league table. You look at the winning run that we're on. Obviously, there's been one defeat to Midtjylland, but every other game that we've played under O'Neill, we've won the game. And also, we need to touch on this. There was a suggestion in the first half from the commentary team that Martin O'Neill would be here for the game against Dundee. It's not a rumour. He confirmed it himself in the pre-match. So Martin O'Neill will be here for the game against Dundee on Wednesday night. I don't know if it's planned. Do we plan things? I'm not sure. I don't know if there's been a delay. Who knows? But Martin O'Neill seemed almost as surprised as anyone, because in the pre-match press conferences yesterday, he's talking about this being his final game.
I believe, when you mentioned Ronnie Dyler, I believe he won the MLS Cup as well, which I think is Wilfred Nancy's highest achievement to date also. So there's a little bit of...
Is Dyler coming well? Is he part of the coaching team?
I think he's unemployed right now. So, but yeah, 2 home games coming up. Martin O'Neill's going to, as you said, definitely be in charge for at least one of them. But if we win the 2 home games, then we're top of the league next week. And
I think for
it's not been an easy run of fixtures.
No.
It's less than 72 hours ago we walked off the pitch in Feyenoord, and we're out here at Easter Road. It's not an easy game, So
this scenario, Sean, this kind of happens too often, where we potentially are bringing a manager in to take over a team that's top of the league. I can't think of that happening in not even within our club, but in many clubs that's happened. It's a strange scenario.
It's been a strange season, Chris. It's been a strange season, let's be honest, mate. It has been. The point was made actually during the game. At one point, I think it was Chris Sutton that made the point. Sarachi was the only new signing who started today. He was the only summer signing who started, and I think that's an issue. And by the way, I am not a pessimistic type of a person. I'm not looking for a negative, but why has there been a delay? Because O'Neill thought, X, Y, and Z was his last game, and he's getting another game. He told us after the international break, I'll be away. He's still here. We were told just during the week, this is expected to be his final game. It's not. But the run of games that any new manager's coming into, so we've got Dundee on Wednesday night, of course. We've then got Hearts on the Sunday. We've then got Roma, and then we've got a League Cup final. I mean, 4 big games coming up. And I'm feeling much better about those 4 games, Chris, since Martin O'Neill came in. You look at our record, our last 6 games in the league, 2 defeats and 4 wins. We know what the 2 defeats, obviously, circumstances of those, Dundee and Hearts. But Martin comes in and he grinds out a result when we need to grind out a result, i.e. this game and the St Mirren game. He gives us performances like the 4-0 against Falkirk and Kilmarnock. He gets us through extra time. He gives us a brilliant European result away from home. I mean, Dundee on Wednesday night is going to be an incredible occasion, if indeed it is. And it would be great to say farewell at a full Celtic Park as well, Chris.
Oh, I would listen, and nobody deserves it more than Martin O'Neill, and credit to Sean Maloney and Mark Fotheringham for their contributions. It'll be interesting to see, if Martin does finish up on in the role on, midweek, will Sean or Mark continue to play a part? But it's as you say, it's a really strange scenario because you're looking at the challenge that's facing Nancy coming in, right? Irrespective of if we win at Dundee and we let's say we're de facto top of the league, games played notwithstanding, but you've got Nancy coming in then to play against your title rivals at the moment, to play his first European game against a real powerhouse, and then a League Cup final. And you've got all this good faith within the supporters, endangered by Martin O'Neill and what he's done up to this point. He's getting results. The bottom line is he is, largely behind why we are now in a much healthier position in the league table, and he's brought a little bit of European belief back as well. So Nancy's coming in, and if Nancy doesn't get off to a really promising start, he's going to be under immense pressure because as football fans, we can have short memories sometimes, and the immediate memories are going to go to, well, why are we changing things when we're actually doing so well? The question will be asked in certain circles, and that's a hell of a condition for a manager to come in. Now, look, I'm firmly behind the appointment of Nancy if that's the direction the club wants to go. Until the manager comes in and gives me a reason not to support him, I'll absolutely get behind him, and indeed I'll get behind anybody that's in the dugout, until they give me a reason not to. But at the moment, for me, Martin O'Neill has steadied the ship and he's taken the ship on the right course. So it's kind of like, does it make sense to change it now? Why not, right? If you were really being strategic about it, why not allow the momentum to continue until the cup final, right? To allow Martin O'Neill to get us through the Hearts game, the next European game, and get to the cup final. Give him the opportunity to get the best possible send-off by winning the cup final, hopefully. Again, no disrespect to their opposition in that match. But you're bringing a manager in who could actually, within his first 3 games, could see us lose any momentum in Europe, could see us drop back in the title race, and could see us potentially lose a cup final. How does a new manager recover from that?
The thing for me is, and again, it's not to be negative. I just think 3 regimes, chopping and changing from Rodgers to O'Neill to Nancy. The Nancy one might be a massive change in philosophy and approach, and obviously there's also that niggling thing I said to you before. It's been a strange old season. You've got to think about, right, give the manager the window. You've also got to consider that whoever's going to be the manager needs the January window to really ensure that we're galvanised going into the second half of the season. Somebody who didn't feature today, and he's actually been an unused sub for 3 games in a row, Sean Balakwisha, talking about January transfers. I mean, this is a guy we're almost 6 months down the line. Never really done anything. Yeah. It's a worry, isn't it? 5 million quid winger, not really contributing.
Yeah, and Martin O'Neill name dropped him during the week as well. So it's Martin O'Neill's consciousness, that he's not getting a game, despite being presumably a high earner, since he was definitely a high value transfer. Yeah, it's a strange one, but I'm not writing him off. We need to maybe just get him in, get some wisdom teeth removed, get Yang's girlfriend round to cook a couple of hot meals for him, and then I think he'll come good at that point. That's all it needs. We were all, a lot of us, probably me included, I don't remember feeling too strong about it, but I think a lot of people had pretty much written Nicholas Kuhn off after a few months. And then, he came in January, and it wasn't till like about August we started to see the best of him. So, it can take half a year. It can. Like even players like Victor Wanyama took about half a year to get settled as well. So I'm certainly not writing him off, and I've seen a couple of flashes of technique, but physically and mentally he's just not at level to contribute at the moment, and that's frustrating since we paid 5 million for him. Very frustrating. And it's also probably doesn't help him that the squad is not in a good place. It's not like he's coming off the bench at 3-0 up, which is the kind of soft landing that some signings have had in the past, right? At the moment, it's like all hands on deck. Everyone needs to contribute. We've got 4 left wingers, no strikers and no right wingers. So let's just see what we can do, lads. And yeah, and so that there's a lot of things working against him, as well as the fact that he doesn't appear to be physically or mentally ready yet. And so I'm not writing him off, but it's disappointing days so far.
It is, and if you look at the 2 signings, the big signings, if you like, £10.2 million combined for Tuneke and Balikwisha, and you say, right, they guys are not playing. Who was playing in their place? Oh, Yang comes back in, and Yang, for me, is in the top 2 of man of the match. I mean, I've given Trusty and Scales plaudits. I thought they were excellent today, Trusty and Scales, right? And maybe there's a bit of favouritism creeping in with my second choice of man of the match, and you can argue the toss over who it was, but I think Engels was excellent today as well. But Yang, for me, you know, there was a couple of moments, Chris, where you think end product, and it's just tremendous. He's taken on 3 or 4 bodies. He's cut inside, like you say. On one occasion, he didn't fancy the shot. The second time he did. And Ewan Martin, I hope you're in the comment section, mate, because you've stuck up for him when we've all been criticising him. He obviously gets his goal during the week, and he's definitely a player that, let's be honest, Brendan Rodgers persevered with him, Chris. Big time. He persevered with Yang. And in the last few weeks, he seems to be coming to the fore. So, yeah, there's an opportunity for new guys to make a name for themselves. They're not really grasping it, but Yang is. And Yang, again, sorry to bring up January again, but just looking ahead to January, Yang was one of the guys who, you know, the Birmingham City move broke down because we didn't have anybody in the door to replace him on the right wing, as it was. But again, what happens to him in January? You know, he's in that category we made at the moment, isn't he? He might not be here.
Well, this is it. I mean, and we don't know. I mean, we don't know who is likely to make the decision on whether Yang stays or goes. I mean, Yang himself might still want to go, but at the moment he's getting.
Why change a habit, a lifestyle, and get a lifetime rather than give the manager that?
Well,
because he's not had it in the past, Chris.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine? You know, using that common sense and logic. But yeah, I mean, Yang at the moment, he's playing week in, week out, and for the first time, we're actually seeing a bit of consistency about him. And we're looking at a player who looks as if his confidence has been restored. He looks like he's prepared to go and take players on. He looks like he looks like a player who's maybe got the backing and the faith of the manager. And maybe that's something he hasn't had before. So maybe, you know, the decision-making process around him potentially leaving previously, you know, came from a combination of maybe the manager not necessarily, you know, wanting to continue to use him and the player not being happy under the current regime. Circumstances have changed. You know, it looks now like he's playing in a way that suits his ability. He looks as though he's got his confidence. Maybe that's coming from the manager and the coaching staff and the fact that he is now in the team. And I mean, if he puts in another, you know, couple of performances like that, he could become, you know, potentially a real good asset for either the current manager or the incoming manager. So there's a lot of things that could still determine whether or not he moves on in January or maybe even in the summer. But for the moment, all you're looking for the player to do is continue doing what he's doing on the park, which is putting in good, strong, you know, high contribution performances like he did today. And listen, I've been a big critic, you know, of Yang over the piece, and I think, you know, I still stand by a lot of that criticism at the time. But I'm also prepared to give praise and credit where it's due, and I think he deserves it.
He does. I'm going to work through some more of these comments in the last 6 minutes or so. Stephen Broadley comes in. Talk about a game of two halves. Looks like we settle with a goal lead and hope for the best. Dangerous mindset. I'm going to go back to something Sean said, you know, getting home, recovering from the Thursday night endeavours away from home. And I think it showed in the second half. Maybe people think I'm letting them off the hook. I do think it showed. Brandon Warren, we need to be attacking the last part of this match and putting pressure on them. I agree. And I think that's where the Tuneke discussion and Balikwisha, who didn't come on, you've got to be bringing people off the bench who have the ability to make that impact. And unfortunately, Tuneke comes on. First thing he does is he kicks the ball out the park, and you're thinking, right, okay, this is just going to be the skills and Trusty show for the last 10 minutes. John.
Also, the chance that Schmeichel saves, that's Tuneke loses his runner as well.
Yeah.
So
I know.
It was very nearly Tuneke was the story.
Yeah, it almost was. And this is the thing, at that stage of the game with a European match on the Thursday, you're thinking, right, last 15, 20 minutes, you want to be bringing people on who are just going to shore this up, create a chance out of nothing, maybe get our noses in front, and it didn't quite happen. Barry O'Sullivan, the drop-off in energy is worrying. We seem to be waiting to coincide. And we've also got Noah McKee. Yeah, you're right, he does save. Because I've been getting stick for this T-shirt. Obviously, the T-shirt itself is a nod to a famous Verve T-shirt from the 1990s, Music Saves, which was in itself a parody of the bumper sticker, Jesus Saves, that the band constantly seen when they were on the road during the 1990s. Team Engels, Clydebank, Celtic, you're speaking my language, and Jungle Lions in as well. Huge result, puts pressure on the cheats now. Yeah, it absolutely does. Big thank you to Derek Conway for your contribution, supporting a Celtic state of mind as well. And Tony, also, who I've met at an Acsom live show. Congrats, Acsom, on the awards, Hall of Fame induction, and the classy new studio. Well done, Celtic. Hail, hail. Yeah, we're on the move. We're keeping things moving, obviously. And over the last couple of years, we've been streaming from a renovated garage. That's the way it is. People think this is my bedroom, right? And maybe it is, and maybe you'll never know. But it is a renovated studio. So we are moving into the hub, which, of course, is Glasgow, the heartbeat of Celtic Football Club. And it's a lot easier for a lot of contributors who live near to that area, and also future guests as well. So looking forward to that. It's been a long time coming. I was just saying to Chris before we went live today, I actually did a pilot when we had a studio in Dalkeith 4 years ago, and then circumstances deemed that we couldn't do it because we lost the videographer, and indeed we moved out of that studio as well. But it is going to happen now. Pete, winning at Easter Road is something we never do, but that performance was shocking. Passing back to Schmeichel, 5 like-for-like subs despite being outplayed. McGregor anonymous. Pete, I tell you something, that's one way to look at it, but I'm going to look at it with a more of a positive hue today, because I think that, Hibs are in a situation where they're playing at home, they've had more of a rest than we have this week, and they really need to start stringing results together themselves. They started off really well this season, Hibs, and I'll tell you something, they certainly don't want to be doing Hearts a favour. So a big part of that was Hibs as well. We don't focus on the opposition a great deal because we're so focused on Celtic. I thought Hibs actually came to the party fully armed. They had their own game to play, and I think they played it pretty well. Kevin McMonigal, Casper pulled off a few crucial saves. He certainly did. He's been getting stick this season. And David Boyle says, good game management today. Engels is growing as a player. Can we talk a wee bit about Engels then, Sean? I'm going to come over to you. I've said today at some point, I thought his debut season in a Celtic jersey was a solid 7. This season, he wasn't really stringing games together or performances, but he has started doing that. He is growing, I think, in stature. I wanted him to add aggression to his game, but not a silly aggression where he's giving away fouls needlessly. There has been a bit of an aggression in his game, hasn't there?
Yeah, he couldn't get in the team at the start of the season. We had Nygren and Hatate and starting playing alongside McGregor for most games at the start of the season. But yeah, he's been pretty good in the last few weeks. He was very good today as well. He's very composed, but very very involved as well. The one thing we always said was obviously he scores the penalties, but when he doesn't really time. He hadn't really done that Matt O'Reilly thing, timing his runs into the box to score goals. I think that Nygren already does well. So, and Engels is younger, so maybe it's something that he needs to develop. Matt O'Reilly didn't have it immediately, but it clicked for him, and we saw it today for the first time, really. That Engels made that run into the box at the right time and got on the end of it, and it resulted in a goal. So it was good. But even apart from that, he was key to kind of managing the game. When Bernardo came on, Bernardo was very backwards compared to what Hatate and Engels. And also we can criticize Hatate for his inconsistencies and inaccuracies, but I thought Engels was very much had a high level of accuracy and a high level of composure, and was not afraid, and he would win free kicks when free kicks needed to be won, and he was willing to take charge of things. And I was quite pleased with him today, quite pleased with him midweek, and been pleased with how he's been playing in the last few weeks in general. I think he's turning into the prince that was promised now, and it's good to see.
It is. It's very good to see. I'm just glad he's being utilised. Looking at the Scottish Premiership table today, Hearts are still sitting top, but they've played a game more than Celtic and they're only 2 points ahead of us. Motherwell, are they the dark horses? Are they getting the credit that they deserve this season? They're sitting third at this moment in time. And obviously, Rangers, who are currently playing Falkirk, are just below Motherwell as well. So it's a good day to come away from Leith with 3 points. We're all chuffed, and it's only 2:30 in the afternoon, so you can go and enjoy the rest of your Sunday and the rest of your weekend as well. I've got to thank every single one of you for getting involved in the chat. If you fancy coming along to one of our live events, unfortunately, the next one is completely sold out to Scott Brown, but we do have some tickets left for Paul Elliott live in Glasgow. Elliott was something of a hero of mine. He was in my greatest 11 of players that I had seen for many, many years. I think he has dropped out actually since the Van Dijks and all these kind of guys have come to the fore. But what an impression Paul Elliott made. And I'm really looking forward to it because he's a great speaker. He's live on the 21st of December. Come along. The link is under this video. Thanks everybody for getting involved. And thank you to Chris and Sean for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.